Good morning. I'm Cody Godwin, standing in for Taylor Wilson. Today is Saturday, September 6th, 2025. This is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today, what can a worrying new jobs report tell us about where the economy is headed? Plus, the U.S. military is having a tough time with its recruiting process. And what does renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War signify? A disappointing jobs report released yesterday reveals a slowdown in U.S. hiring due to uncertainty around tariffs and consumer spending. Taylor Wilson spoke with USA Today Money reporter Bailey Schultz for more.
Howdy, Bailey.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So how many jobs did the manufacturing industry in this country shed in August? And I guess how did that compare with the broader job market?
So we just got the most recent jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Manufacturing jobs were down by 12,000 in August, and that's sort of a continuation of this decline that we've been seeing since the most recent peak in early 2023. Overall, taking a step back, we are seeing some signs in the U.S. labor market as a whole, just seeing signs of hiring slowing overall. So the U.S. economy added about 22,000 jobs last month in August, and that's really well below the 75,000 that economists who were surveyed by Bloomberg were expecting. Meanwhile, you're seeing the unemployment rate ticking up slightly, went from 4.2% to 4.3% in August. So yeah, just some signs of slowing.
Well, these trends, Bailey, around domestic manufacturing jobs, they've been, I guess, really decades in the making, right?
This is something that has been going on quite a while, just the slip with manufacturing jobs. So the peak we saw here in the US was back in the late 1970s. And back then, manufacturing jobs made up about 22% of the total non-farm employment in the country. Today, that number is closer to 8%. And so the reason for that is just that manufacturers tend to be more productive today, which means they need fewer people to do the same job.
Yeah, well, I want to get a little bit more into the kind of why here. Why is the manufacturing sector losing workers on this kind of level?
When we're looking at those sort of long-term trends, it's like I said, that rising productivity. I've been told that the higher interest rates have played a role. But when you look specifically at why we're seeing this decline continue this year, and especially under these new trade policies that are supposed to be bolstering the manufacturing sector, we are just seeing a lot of uncertainty among manufacturers with the new trade policies, with tariffs. Right now, the picture for these companies on things like the cost for inputs or consumer demand isn't super clear. And so these companies right now are kind of just taking a wait and see approach. They're holding off on investments like hiring until they have a better understanding of what exactly is going on in the economy.
All right. Well, what policies have we seen from the Trump administration aimed at strengthening this sector?
Tariffs are actually meant to be something that is supposed to bolster this sector. The idea is that importing from outside the US will be more expensive, so we'll have companies turn to local manufacturers instead of importing from other countries like China, for instance. And we have seen the White House has pointed to a number of planned investments from a number of companies involving manufacturing. But so far, we haven't really seen any signs of those efforts bolstering, reversing this downward trend with manufacturing jobs that we're tracking with those BLS numbers.
Well, Billy, I know you have a lot of conversations with experts in this space and in reporting this piece about the role of tariffs. What are you hearing specifically about whether they might boost manufacturing jobs down the line?
Yeah, I think there are people who are definitely hopeful that long-term, this is something that could help. I had someone point out that manufacturing is not a monolith. There are some companies in here that truly benefit from tariffs. Others might be seeing really the ramifications of all this uncertainty. And then there are other economists who are very skeptical that long-term, these tariffs at these rates and sort of with the way they've been rolled out, that this will have any sort of meaningful impact on allowing manufacturing jobs to bounce back, especially to those levels that we saw back in the 1970s, 1980s.
All right. Bailey Schultz covers money for USA Today. Thank you, Bailey.
Thank you.
President Donald Trump said Americans should take vaccines that are, quote, not controversial, end quote.
Look, you have vaccines that work. They just pure and simple work. They're not controversial at all. And I think those vaccines should be used. Otherwise, some people are going to catch it and they endanger other people. And when you don't have controversy at all, I think people should take it.
The president's remarks come after a new controversial policy in Florida plans to repeal vaccine requirements for children attending public schools in the state. The president's Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is also under fire amid turmoil at the CDC, sparked by Kennedy's vaccine skepticism. The U.S. military is suddenly having some issues finding qualified candidates to join the Army. Why is that? Taylor Wilson spoke with USA Today national security reporter Sibel Mays-Osterman for more.
Hello, Sibel.
Hey, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hopping on. So just starting here, how has the Army faced issues with recruitment in recent years? What have we seen?
So in recent years, the Army has faced what has been described as a recruitment crisis. In 2022, for instance, it fell short of its recruiting goal, which was that year 60,000 new soldiers by about 25%. And then it missed the mark again by around the same amount in 2023.
All right, so enter this, potential solution. This is the Future Soldier Preparatory Course. What is this about and how did it come to be?
So this is a program to basically take prospective soldiers who don't yet meet the Army's requirements to start basic training in either academics or their body fat percentage and pull them up to the starting line. And it was first started as like a pilot program in 2022, and then it officially got off the ground the next year. So in this program, these future soldiers, so to speak, have 90 days to hit the bar, and they test every week to see if they have hit the mark. So those who are over the body fat percentage, that means every week they get weighed, they have their waistlines measured. And then for those who don't meet the academic requirements or their test scores on the Army's, they call it the aptitude test, are not high enough, they test every week. And then as soon as they qualify, they get right out of the course within days and they can start in the Army officially as soldiers.
Interesting. So in reporting and writing this piece about, what did you hear from some of the folks who have gone through this program?
Well, this program definitely seems like a very emotional experience for many people. For instance, I saw a taping at Fort Jackson, which is the main base where they run this program. It happened really early in the morning at 6 a.m. or so. And trainees find out right then and there when they're measured and weighed if they are going to be able to officially start the Army. So as you can imagine, it's an intense experience. I saw people in tears, people cheering for their friends. And I talked to a lot of trainees who told me that they came to the course from backgrounds that were really difficult. They had dealt with homelessness, with surviving sexual assault, they said, with poverty or the death of loved ones close to them.
Wow. Well, is this helping the Army meet its recruiting goals? What have they seen?
We can't say definitively that this course has been the thing that has fixed recruitment, but we do see Army recruitment ramping back up in recent years. So this year, for instance, the Army met its goal in June, which was 4 months ahead of schedule. And we also know that around 20 to 25% of new Army soldiers coming in the last few years have come through this program.
Are there worries that this, opens up a pipeline for folks who might not be qualified to be soldiers even after this extra prep? What do critics worry about on that front?
There has been some criticism of this course, describing it as lowering standards. And there was also a report from the Inspector General, which is an independent watchdog inside of the Department of Defense earlier this year, which found that the course was letting in some people whose body fat percentage was higher than what the benchmark said it could be. And then it was spending most of the medical resources or a disproportionate amount on those trainees. We also found that since the program was started, the Army has been really running right up to the line to meet the bar for what's called the quality of the recruits that it lets in. And what that means is that the Army can only have a certain amount of recruits that have the lowest percentage level of test scores.
All right. Sibel Mays-Osterman covers national security and world affairs for USA Today with some great insight for us as always. Thank you, Sibel.
Thanks so much, Taylor.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Friday changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, reviving a name that was abandoned following World War II during a 1947 cabinet reorganization. A White House summary of the order obtained by USA Today said the action will restore Department of War as a secondary name for the Defense Department. The move is intended to reflect what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has described as the administration's effort to instill the warrior ethos across the armed forces. The move comes as Trump has tried to cast himself as peacemaker in several international conflicts, while also flexing the might of the U.S. military by having a parade, for instance. The Trump administration has not provided a cost estimate on changing references from Department of Defense to Department of War throughout the government. The Powerball jackpot sits at an estimated $1.8 billion. If someone matches all 5 numbers, the lucky winner can take a one-time payment of $826.4 million. That's before taxes. This is the second highest jackpot in the game's history, but it could still rise yet again before the next drawing later today. As the amount of the cash prize continues to tick up ahead of tonight's drawing, lottery players, whether seasoned or novice, might be wondering whether they'll be able to keep news of a win on the DL. The good news, at least for some, is that some states allow winners to claim prizes anonymously, allowing the individual to maintain some semblance of privacy while they figure out what they're going to do and who they're going to tell or not tell. You can read more and find the list of these states with a link in today's show notes. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified before the Senate Finance Committee earlier this week in a hearing that was both tense and combative, a testament to the crisis of confidence that now grips the Center for Disease Control and Prevention.
So now there's big alarm bells going off. It's because the CDC is going through a gigantic mess, is what many people describe it as. Major turmoil, really.
That was USA Today White House correspondent Swapna Venugopal. She sat down with my colleague Dana Taylor to talk about that extraordinary hearing last week. What does it mean for Americans' health? That conversation drops at 5 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio. If you use a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Cody Godwin, filling in for Taylor Wilson. Tomorrow you'll hear from Dana Taylor, and I'll be back on Monday with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.